Donald Trump has formally launched his 2020 campaign, and he's leaning on the message that got him here.
The free pass they gave to Hillary and her aides after they set up an illegal server. I have seen firsthand how the system is rigged. The system is rigged. Corrupt media pushing completely false allegations and outright lies. The fake news will say headlines. He didn't fill up the arena, you know.
News viewers and Trump critics may find some of these lines basically stale. But it's worth noting that many Trump loyalists are pumped. There was this giant rally, and the arena was full of fans, a long line, lots of MAGA hats, lots of branding. We also saw on camera these far-right groups, the Proud Boys, marching outside. We should note the Southern Poverty Law Center calls them a hate group, which often associates with and supports white supremacists. That's another vision that we've seen. But there's more than just that. Take a look at what the Wall Street Journal has unearthed, revealing this campaign branding book for 2020, which shows laser focus on certain things, the font size, the spacing, the only certain colors that can be used for certain Trump events, images of Trump that are designed to convey compassion or strength, especially online. And that's not all. If you looked at those lines that we just showed and thought, there he goes again, or it's stale, consider how some of this plays out in local media markets. Here's the Orlando Sentinel headline. It's right on brand. Keep America great. And those color schemes in the branding book, well, they're reflected in that photo, which would look to be exactly the photo that the Trump campaign wants. Or look at the Miami Herald. Trump energizes Orlando rally as he launches re-election bid. Folks reading that are getting the Trump vision. And take a look at this. This is something you may not always see on the news, but we pulled it. This is from a pro-Trump group on Reddit, where hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions of people interact. And it says the basic bottom line MAGA message. I pledge to vote for this man again, and I trust him more than any media company on the planet. You can ignore some of this stuff if you want. You can tune it out if you want. It's America. You can pay attention to whatever you want. Journalistically, we're showing it to you not because it is all true or even all okay when you look at the Proud Boys, but because this is part of the larger production of how Donald Trump is running for re-election, and it is certainly a television and internet production. Meanwhile, consider who he put in charge of his campaign. Very interesting. Not a Washington insider, not even a family member like he likes to do in certain things. No, he took the person in charge of digital from last time and made him in charge of the whole thing. And here's what he's saying.
You know, the president's going to win this. I've always said the president won the first election literally with his airplane and a cell phone, you know, and a Twitter account. This time, though, we have to do some more mobilization.
I'm joined by media innovator Michael Hirschorn. He actually created the concept of celebrity reality TV at VH1 with hits you might remember like Flavor of Love, I Love the 80s, and Celebrity Rehab. He also writes for The Atlantic and is a Trump critic. Thanks for coming back.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm never going to live down the Flavor Flav thing, clearly.
Well, why would you want to?
That's so true.
Your keys to decoding this production.
Right. I think what's really interesting is that the show is now itself the pitch. Right. We want to keep the show going. So if you think about this in terms of from a TV network perspective, which I think is how the Trump people think about it, it's what's the spinoff? What's the next season? And what's interesting is what's disappeared, right? What's disappeared are economic arguments, inclusive, holistic arguments for why, on a policy basis, he should be reelected. He himself is now the argument. He wants to keep the show going. And so the question is, in terms of decoding this going forward, is what is he going to do in order to keep us captivated? And that's where it starts to get a little concerning.
When you look at, say, that meme that we showed, right, that's something that people share on the internet proudly, they want it to upset you.
Yes.
It's like coming to the family reunion and being like, yeah, fake news. I trust him more than your media. It's designed to upset. Do you view that as something that's ever penetrable in any way, or those people sharing that stuff have made their mind up?
Well, I think what Trump has always done has been deny, then admit it, right? So the argument in 2016 was this is really about economic insecurity. Right now, it's about your opportunity mostly as a white guy, but not exclusively as a white guy, to there was a fantastic piece of video before the event of this white guy ripping his shirt off and basically shaking his boobs in front of the protesters. That to me is the perfect metaphor for what Trump's appeal is right now. I'm going to put on a show. You can act however you want, and you can just go on upsetting the other side as much as you want. Now, is that an effective strategy? I don't know. That may be a way to really rev up the core. Whether that can build out, I don't know, because I don't see how anyone who's not already a Trump supporter is now going to become a Trump supporter based on this.
And do you think their digital traction is a kind of accident that they improvised, or something more thought out from a guy who's given a lot of thought to free press? Because they're outspending Democrats on Facebook right now.
Massively, and the Democrats still don't understand digital. The Republicans and Trump picked up from where Obama started in 2008 and put a vastly larger percentage of their spend in 2016, and they're already doing it. They've already spent well into the 7 figures on Facebook this year for next year alone, which I think is about a 10-to-1 outspend of Democrats. Democrats continue not to understand that digital is where the election is going to be fought.
It's fascinating you say that, and it's a reminder when there's so much sort of almost dismissive or smug views of what Trump is doing, how he sounds. And we'll be the first to point out, I mean, these aren't very original lines. You steal them from Reagan and you reboot them.
Right.
And yet, as you point out, there's a whole production echo to all of that. Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos right here, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that.